everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we're going to talk about Brian De Palma, one of the truly great movie directors, and without question, one of the most criminally underappreciated filmmakers who very rarely gets mentioned in any top 10 or best of movie director lists or debates. Now we'll go over the best movies throughout his established career, and I will do my best not to drop any spoilers, but we'll also leave a list within the description of the films mentioned, just in case you haven't seen them yet. So to start off this breakdown, I suppose we can go with the first Mission Impossible movie from 1996. The big budget movie adaptation of the classic 60s spy television series probably shares connection most in terms of the title and the classic theme music. This was very much more of a summer blockbuster vehicle for Tom Cruise, and this was the movie that started his transition into an event action movie star. I would go on to become the franchise that's very much defined his legacy, certainly in the modern age that we are in now. And whilst the first film isn't the best overall within the franchise, it is the one that stays closer to that spy espionage thriller tone and vibe, more so than the other films afterwards, which are much more action, adventure and escapist stories. And De Palma directs with a certain composure, if also at a slightly too leisurely a pace. It does have standout moments that really sold the movie when it was initially released. The slow motion explosion fish tank as we see Ethan Hunt escaping other agents. The still very tense sequence where we see Hunt infiltrating the data room via a metal rope, being held by Jean Reno. A great exercise in suspense and something that can be utilised without the aid of music. And of course the spectacular climax, seeing Hunt on the roof of a speeding train being pursued by helicopters. All great stuff. And the film itself was a massive success, the biggest of De Palma's career, very much going against type with this type of blockbuster, but overall a worthwhile entry within his filmography. We'll then go back to the first real significant film of De Palma's career with Carrie from 1976, the first movie adaptation of Stephen King's classic horror novel, and still to this day very much the best one, as we see shy, frail teenager Carrie being tormented by her school bullies. Having discovered her powers of telekinesis, her angst and frustration manifest itself to truly devastating effect within the school prom night at the barn as she wreaks a devastating revenge. A very startling, raw, supernatural horror story. It's also a brutal commentary on bullying of the youth and victimization, as well as emotional and psychological torment and parental abuse. And De Palma handles all of these themes masterfully. And the fact is that this film still holds relevance today, and that's always a sign of a truly great film. As mentioned, no other sequel or reboot has come close to matching the standard of the original, which is again a truly outstanding effort from the director, who would go on of course to excel later on within his own potential. We then go on from one outstanding movie to the next with the superb gangster film Carlito's Way, released in 1993. This was De Palma's second collaboration with the legendary Al Pacino. The first one is of course we will mention later on throughout this breakdown. And Carlito's Way centres on the title character of Carlito Brigante, a former renowned gangster, free from completing his long prison sentence, looking to rebuild his life by going straight, but eventually finds himself drawn back into the criminal world. And yes, it's a familiar story that's all been well told many times, but this isn't your typical violent, sensationalistic gangster story. It's much more rich and textured, and very much romanticised in terms of its characterisation. And in the lead role, Pacino transmits his usual great screen charisma, and throughout the film you're always rooting for Carlito to succeed in his crusade for happiness and a peaceful life. We also shouldn't dismiss Sean Penn's equally great performance as Carlito's drug-using erratic lawyer, Dave Kleinfeld, as well as mentioning of course the gorgeous and beautiful Penelope Ann Miller. And De Palma just crafts overall a masterful and very beautiful movie, both in its cinematography and its tone, alongside a fine musical score from Patrick Doyle. You simply can't deny the final climactic 15 to 20 minutes as Carlito is on the run fighting for his life and survival. It really is pulsating, nail-biting stuff, tense and exciting, with De Palma showcasing all of his techniques and camera tricks, with all of the overhead shots and revolving camera transitions and sharp editing. Fantastic stuff from the filmmaker. And Carlito's Way remains a really criminal underrated masterpiece within the gangster genre, right up there amongst the very best, and most definitely an elite entry within De Palma's career. And it's ultimately a shame that he and Pacino couldn't unite again for a third time overall. And if Carlito's Way is underrated, then we have to double that sentiment for the next movie, which is Casualties of War. Released in 1989 and the fabric of the Vietnam War movie era within the 1980s, as we see Michael J. Fox's acting Lieutenant Max Erikson being intimidated and overpowered by his fellow soldiers as they kidnap and abuse a young woman from a Vietnamese village. Shockingly based on actual events, this is simply one of the most emotionally powerful and harrowing Vietnam War films ever. Whilst it's more smaller and intimate in scale, that doesn't take away from its impact or reverence. It's very much a statement of what the war does to men psychologically. Very much they are the casualties of a loss of innocence, the casualties of a loss of conscience. And the movie just has great performances all round from Sean Penn once more. Michael J. Fox very much plays against type. And also we have an incredible performance from the lead female actress Chu Toy Lee. Alongside composer Ennio Morricone's haunting music, this film just stays with you long after watching it. And it's such a shame that it gets lost in the debates and discussion over the Great Vietnam War movies, which normally involves the likes of Platoon and Full Metal Jacket and Born on the 4th of July. But Casualties of War is every bit as important and without question one of De Palma's very best movies. We then go on to a film that without question could lay claim to being the best overall film within De Palma's career, and that is of course The Untouchables. Charting the story of the famous Treasury agent Eliot Ness and his relentless crusade against criminal kingpin Al Capone in the 1930s Prohibition era within Chicago. And this is simply a dream movie near perfection level of movie making. One of those examples where everything is judged just right. From the direction, the acting, the music, the cinematography, the story. All of these qualities the movie excels at to a level that you just cannot deny. The Dream Ensemble cast, of course, has Kevin Costner as Eliot Ness, from Robert De Niro to Al Capone, and of course the legendary Sean Connery as Malone, with also fine support from Andy Garcia and Charles Martin Smith, and they all perform magnificently together in all the scenes that they are involved in. And the movie itself just has so many memorable scenes and sequences and dialogue and moments, as De Palma very much paints a group of lawful heroes going out to exhibit justice. Superb direction backed up by yet another legendary musical score from Ennio Morricone. It's just a complete masterpiece, and it was a massive hit on its release within 1987, gaining lots of critical reception as well as commercial success. And it's all fully deserved, as it does remain one of the best gangster films ever and one of the greatest films within the 1980s, and those are two statements that you definitely cannot argue against when talking about Untouchables. Possibly the best movie within De Palma's career, and whilst many would actually put it at the top of the list, it does unfortunately find itself on a runner-up spot within this breakdown. And there's a special reason why that is, as we come to the truly special movie in the number one position, the best ever film of Brian De Palma's great career, and it is of course Scarface. At the time of the 1980s, this was a contemporary remake of the Howard Hawks film of the same name for the 1930s, this time setting the film in modern day Miami, as we see Cuban immigrant Tony Montana transferred over as part of a migrant group, setting his ambitious path to consume the world and everything in it. And we look back at this movie once more and you kind of run out of superlatives. What more can we say about it? It has everything going for it in terms of a magnificent story. It's savage, it's violent, it's intense, and it's utterly compelling. All the way through from its 2.5 hour runtime, the scenes are almost unrelenting pace and intensity as it charts the path that Tony Montana sets in order to achieve the ultimate ambition. And of course, with lead actor Al Pacino in this role, personally for me, I believe we are looking at the greatest on-screen acting performance from any lead actor. From the opening scene, you are simply drawn to this character of Tony Montana all the way through. Regardless of the different actions that he takes, you still end up rooting for him when we come to the classic, iconic, explosive climax. And that's just great storytelling involved from Brian De Palma, making you really immersed in the world and the characters that we have involved here. And of course, it's not just Al Pacino, it's also the likes of Stephen Bauer, Michelle Pfeiffer, and also Robert Loggia, who all perform great performances, even though, if we're being honest, it is once more the great Pacino really driving this film all the way through, and I've yet to see another performance since then that can have the same amount of compelling weight and just screen, figure and aura. And Scarface still is rightly regarded as one of the greatest gangster films of all time. I believe it's not only that, but it also stands as one of the greatest films of all time, literally talking within the top 10, possibly a top 5 list of the greatest movies that have ever been made. It truly is that special. I do believe that alongside The Untouchables, this was Brian De Palma at his absolute peak. As mentioned already, he did re-collaborate again with Pacino in a very superb Carlito's Way 10 years after Scarface, but Scarface really is that film that is full of vivid energy, a movie that you just cannot take your eyes off from the opening scene right through to the concluding one. And that's always a defining point of any great film, and once you watch it all the way through, you simply deem it a masterpiece, a 10 out of 10, and it is without question the best and greatest film throughout Brian De Palma's magnificent directing career, so far at the very least. So those are my thoughts and feelings when breaking down the best films about the great Brian De Palma's directorial career. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you believe there's any films that I've missed or other entries that are deserving of mention, also let me know in the comments so we can have further debate. And if you have any other movies, television series or topics or issues within the entertainment and pop culture scene that you'd like to see me cover within the channel, then also let me know within the comments, and I'll see if I can provide further content for you on that subject matter in the very future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.